everyone, and welcome back to a new episode. I know many of you use these videos to help you sleep, so before we begin, I thought it would be fun for everyone to say hello and leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. Your engagement really makes this channel special. And hey, if you enjoy getting your nightly dose of thrills and chills with us, why not hit that subscribe button below? It's the best way to never miss out on the latest terrifying tales. So kick back, relax, and let's get started. The flickering neon sign outside my dusty bookstore cast an eerie glow on the chipped porcelain doll perched at the register. Its vacant glass eyes stared out at the deserted street, a silent sentinel in my world of forgotten stories. Tonight, however, the silence felt heavier than usual, laced with an unseen tension. A sudden gust of wind rattled the antique weather vane on the roof, sending a discordant chime echoing through the store. The hairs on my neck prickled. It wasn't the wind. The air hung thick with a strange energy, a low hum that resonated beneath the floorboards. Intrigued and more than a little apprehensive, I crept towards the back room, the source of the unsettling hum. Pushing open the creaking door, I froze. A swirling vortex of inky blackness pulsed in the center of the room, pulsating with an unnatural light. From its depths, a clawed hand emerged, long and skeletal, its nails dripping with a viscous black liquid. A wave of nausea washed over me, the metallic tang of fear filling my throat. But before I could scream, a raspy voice, like nails scraping a chalkboard, echoed through the room. "The key," it rasped, its voice dripping with malice. "Where's the key?" Before I could even comprehend what was happening, a tiny streak of white streaked past me, a small white mouse with a defiant glint in its beady black eyes. It landed on the edge of the vortex, its tiny body trembling as it chirped a series of rapid squeaks. The voice in the vortex hissed, "Silence, vermin," and a tendril of inky blackness lashed out towards the mouse. The creature dodged narrowly, its tiny claws scraping against the dusty floorboards. This wasn't just any mouse. This was Jasper, my bookstore mascot, a constant companion known for his penchant for pilfering cheese puffs and napping in sunbeams. But tonight, Jasper was facing down a terrifying entity from another dimension, his courage defying his size. Driven by a primal urge to protect my furry friend, I lunged for a heavy brass bookend lying by the dusty fireplace. With a roar that rattled the windows, I slammed it down on the tendril of darkness. It recoiled as if burned, emitting a high-pitched squeal that sent shivers down my spine. The entity in the vortex pulsed angrily. "You dare interfere, mortal? You will suffer for this." Jasper, emboldened by my attack, let out a series of defiant squeaks. Then, to my utter astonishment, he began to glow. A soft, white light emanated from his tiny body, pushing back against the inky tendrils of darkness. The world seemed to bend around me, the air crackling with unseen energy. I stumbled back, my vision blurring as the inky blackness in the vortex grew more intense. It pulsed once, twice, and then with a deafening whine, it collapsed in on itself, imploding in a flash of blinding light. When the dust settled and the light faded, silence reigned. Jasper stood panting on the floorboards, his white glow fading but a faint hum still clinging to his fur. The vortex was gone, replaced by a faint scorch mark on the dusty wooden floor. Relief washed over me in waves, so strong it brought tears to my eyes. I scooped Jasper up, cradling his tiny body close. He had saved me, a brave little mouse defying a creature of nightmares. The following days were a blur of research. Dusty scrolls and ancient tomes held the key to understanding what had happened. Jasper, it turned out, wasn't just any mouse. He was a guardian, a creature chosen to protect an ancient amulet, the source of the vortex, from falling into the wrong hands. And I, apparently, was now the unwitting keeper. The amulet, an unassuming porcelain doll with vacant glass eyes, nestled harmlessly on the counter, now bore the weight of a terrifying secret. The knowledge terrified me, yet a tiny spark of pride flickered within. Jasper, my loyal companion, wasn't just a pet, he was a protector entrusted with a cosmic duty. And I, the dusty bookstore owner, was now part of a bizarre and terrifying mission to safeguard the amulet and prevent the horrors it held at bay from ever escaping. The wind riled the old weather vane again, its chime echoing through the quiet store. A tremor ran through Jasper, who scurried onto my shoulder, his beady eyes scanning the room for any sign of a renewed threat. We weren't alone in this. And with a guardian like Jasper by my side, I was ready to face whatever nightmares the amulet might unleash. The scent of dust and forgotten dreams hung heavy in the air as I sifted through the cluttered attic. My grandmother, a woman known for her cryptic pronouncements and fascination with the occult, had recently passed. Sorting through her belongings felt like navigating a labyrinth of her eccentric personality. A glint of gold caught my eye from a corner, half buried under a pile of moth-eaten shawls. It was a locket, intricately carved with swirling patterns that seemed to writhe under the dim attic light. Curiosity sparked. I unclasped it, revealing a tarnished mirror within. As I reached out to touch it, a jolt of energy surged through the locket, throwing me backward. A wave of nausea washed over me as the attic around me began to distort, walls melting like wax. When my vision cleared, I found myself standing in a desolate landscape bathed in an eerie crimson light. 2 blood-red moons hung low in the bruised sky, casting grotesque shadows on the cracked earth. A guttural growl echoed through the barren wasteland, sending chills down my spine. Before I could react, a monstrous creature lumbered out of the twilight. It was vaguely humanoid, but its skeletal frame was draped in tattered flesh, and its eyes glowed with malevolent hunger. Terror constricted my chest, but before I could scream, a swarm of iridescent beetles erupted from the locket, swirling around the creature like a miniature, buzzing blizzard. Their wings shimmered with a vibrant blue, casting an ethereal glow on the scene. The creature screeched, a sound that scraped against my sanity, and swatted at the buzzing swarm. The beetles, surprisingly agile and relentless, dodged its attacks. They buzzed with an electric fury, launching themselves against the creature's exposed flesh. With each contact, the creature recoiled, emitting angry shrieks. Fueled by a surge of desperation and a morbid curiosity, I fumbled for my phone in my pocket. The camera app flickered to life, casting a pale beam of light into the crimson darkness. As I pointed the light at the beetles, they swarmed towards it, their blue luminescence amplified. Suddenly, it clicked. My grandmother, in one of her infrequent moments of clarity, had spoken about light amplifying the beetle's electrical charge. A reckless plan formed in my mind. Using my phone as a makeshift beacon, I lured the swarm towards the creature's exposed hand, the one reaching closest towards me. A deafening crack split the air as the swarm converged on the creature's hand. A blinding flash illuminated the nightmarish landscape, followed by a sickening sizzle. The creature roared, a sound that shook the very ground beneath my feet. It stumbled back, its hand smoking and charred. Seizing the opportunity, I focused the beam of light on my grandmother's locket, hoping it held the key back to reality. The mirrored surface hummed, the tarnished gold glowing with an inner light. As I reached towards it, a colossal claw shot out from the darkness, aimed at me. But it was too late. The locket pulsed violently, and with a rush of vertigo, I was back in the dusty attic, the familiar scent of mothballs filling my nostrils. The locket lay open on the floor, the tarnished mirror reflecting my pale, terrified face. The attic seemed different now, somehow more ominous. A frantic buzzing filled the air. The beetles, a shimmering cloud of blue, circled the room before settling on the open locket. My chest tightened. They had followed me, these protectors from a terrifying realm. Sleep was a luxury I no longer dared to indulge in. Now, I was a keeper, an unwilling participant in a cosmic tug-of-war. The attic became my sanctuary, the buzzing beetles a constant reminder of the monstrous reality I held at bay. The mirror on the locket remained blank, a silent barrier against the crimson nightmare. But I knew it wouldn't be long before another desperate creature clawed its way through, drawn by the faint echo of my world. And when it did, I and the buzzing guardians would be waiting. The rusted key felt cold and foreign in my hand, its intricate design pulsing with an almost undetectable warmth. It had been buried deep within a dusty tome I'd inherited from my estranged uncle, a man obsessed with the arcane and the unexplained. Now, standing before the ornately carved grandfather clock in his old mansion, a knot of apprehension tightened in my gut. The inscription above the clock's face sent a shiver down my spine. Tempus operat omnia, time unlocks all. Was I about to unlock something I wished I hadn't? Taking a deep breath, I inserted the key into the ornate keyhole. A low groan echoed through the silent house as the clockwork whirred to life for the first time in decades. The hands on the clock face, intricate filigree butterflies, began to spin wildly, blurring into a whirlwind of silver. The air crackled with a sickly green energy. Then, with a deafening crack that shook the very foundation of the house, the shimmering portal tore open in the space behind the clock. A wave of nausea washed over me as I peered into the portal. Instead of a familiar landscape, I saw a twisted, nightmarish world. Jagged mountains, sculpted from obsidian glass, pierced a sky choked with swirling purple clouds. Skeletal trees, their branches clawing at the bruised sky, stood like macabre monuments in the desolate landscape. Before I could pull back, a creature emerged from the portal. It was humanoid in form, but its skin was a sickly green, its eyes glowed like embers, and from its back sprouted two leathery bat wings. It snarled, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth, and a stench of sulfur filled the room. Panic clawed at my throat. I stumbled back, knocking over a dusty lamp in the process. The creature's gaze snapped towards the fallen lamp, its eyes narrowing. With surprising agility, it lunged across the portal, reaching for the overturned lamp with a taloned hand. Suddenly, a flurry of activity erupted from behind a stack of dusty books tucked away in a corner. Tiny, spindly figures, glowing with an ethereal blue light, swarmed the creature's hand. They were spiders, unlike any I'd ever seen, their bodies adorned with iridescent markings. The creature shrieked in surprise, swatting at the buzzing swarm. Its touch sent tiny sparks flying, but the spiders, undeterred, continued their relentless assault. They spun a web of shimmering blue silk around the creature's hand, effectively immobilizing it. Seeing the unexpected help, I scrambled to reach the grandfather clock. Using the heavy brass pendulum as a makeshift lever, I managed to pry the portal partially shut. The green energy wavered, and the creature's screams grew muffled as the portal shrunk around it. With a final, desperate heave, I slammed the portal shut. The clockwork sputtered and died, plunging the room back into darkness. Exhausted and shaken, I collapsed onto the floor, surrounded by the soft clicking of the spiders. They scuttled across the fallen lamp, seemingly unharmed by their brief encounter with the creature. As daylight crept through the grimy windows, casting pale beams of light on the room, I finally managed to collect myself. The spiders remained, their glowing bodies huddled together. They were the guardians, I realized, the defenders of the world glimpsed behind the portal. My uncle, with his obsession with the arcane, had unwittingly created a bridge between worlds. Now, thanks to the spiders and a healthy dose of luck, the bridge was closed. But the key still felt heavy in my pocket, a constant reminder of the horrifying possibilities that lurked beyond the silent grandfather clock. The spiders, my unexpected allies, clicked softly, a sound that now seemed less creepy and more like a solemn pact. We were bound together, me and the glowing spiders, forever watchful guardians of the threshold between worlds. The mansion would never feel like home, but it did serve a purpose now. It was a silent sentry, a dusty mausoleum holding a portal shut. And within its silent halls, with the spiders as my silent companions, I would stand guard, ensuring that no other nightmares clawed their way through the fragile barrier of time. Rain lashed against the grimy window panes of my antique shop, a relentless percussion that mimicked the frantic pounding in my chest. The power had flickered and died moments before, plunging the shop into an inky darkness. But it wasn't the absence of light that chilled me, it was the soft, melodic chirping emanating from a dusty porcelain doll perched on a forgotten shelf. The doll, a dainty creature with wide, vacant blue eyes and a prim white dress, had been in my possession for years. It was a relic from a bygone era, a silent observer of countless antique transactions. Now, bathed only in the occasional flash of lightning, it seemed to hum with an unsettling energy, the chirping growing louder, more frantic. Panic clawed at my throat. Porcelain dolls didn't chirp. Not without a very good reason. I fumbled for a lighter in my pocket, its faint flame a beacon in the suffocating darkness. As the flame flickered to life, I cautiously approached the doll. There, at its base, nestled amongst the delicate porcelain folds of its dress, was a tiny bird. A robin, no bigger than a child's thumb, its feathers a vibrant crimson against the stark white dress. The chirping grew more insistent as the bird hopped onto the outstretched finger I hesitantly offered. But the strangest part of all was the robin's eyes. They weren't the familiar black of its earthly counterpart. They glowed with an eerie emerald light, mirroring the flashes of lightning outside. It was as if this tiny bird held a doorway to another world within its feathered body. Before I could even formulate a coherent thought, the air in the shop crackled with unseen energy. The emerald glow in the robin's eyes intensified, and the floor beneath me began to ripple. Then, with a deafening boom that shuddered through the very building, a swirling vortex materialized in the center of the room. From the vortex emerged a grotesque creature, a hulking mass of writhing tentacles and a maw filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. It let out a guttural roar, the sound echoing through the shop like a demonic opera. Terror threatened to consume me, but the robin, perched valiantly on my finger, chirped a defiant melody, its small voice ringing with an otherworldly power. As the creature lunged, a swarm of iridescent moths, their wings shimmering with an ethereal blue light, erupted from a forgotten display case lining the wall. They fluttered around the creature like snowflakes caught in a storm, their delicate wings brushing against its oozing flesh. But their touch wasn't harmless. It sent waves of crackling energy through the creature, forcing it to recoil with a screech. Taking advantage of the distraction, I scrambled for the heavy brass bookend lying by the dusty cash register. With a roar that echoed through my own head, I slammed it down on the vortex. The air crackled with a sickening sizzle, and the creature shrieked in agony. The bookend, surprisingly, remained intact, but the vortex wavered. Emboldened by the sight, I grabbed a handful of the luminous moths from the air and tossed them towards the swirling darkness. They disappeared into the vortex, their blue glow intensifying as they did. The vortex pulsed erratically, shrinking with each passing moment. The creature would then let out a final, ear-splitting shriek before vanishing completely, leaving only a faint scorch mark on the wooden floor. As quickly as it had appeared, the vortex vanished, the air once again heavy with a charged silence. The robin, its emerald glow fading, chirped softly on my finger before taking flight and disappearing out the shattered window, a crimson blur against the lightning-streaked sky. Exhaustion washed over me, my legs giving way as I crumpled to the floor. The moths, their ethereal luminescence diminishing, fluttered back to their forgotten display case, settling amongst the dusty trinkets. The experience left me shaken, yet a strange sense of wonder mingled with the fear. My shop, a haven for forgotten treasures, was now a portal, albeit a closed one. And the delicate robin, a fleeting visitor from another world, had somehow saved me. The next morning, driven by a newfound curiosity, I delved into dusty scrolls and forgotten journals tucked away in the back room. My research led me down a rabbit hole of forgotten lore, filled with stories of interdimensional portals and the strange beings that guarded them. The moths, apparently, were the keepers of this world, their bioluminescent properties a natural defense mechanism against entities like the one I had encountered. Now, I was the unwilling custodian of a doorway, with the luminous moths as my unlikely allies. The rain had stopped, replaced by a sliver of pale sunlight peeking through the broken window. Stepping out into the fresh morning air, I glanced back at the shop, a sense of unease settling in my stomach. The familiar facade now seemed different, imbued with a subtle energy I hadn't noticed before. As long as the moths remained, I knew there was a fragile peace. But a tiny part of me couldn't help but wonder what would happen if they weren't there to greet the next visitor from beyond the porcelain doll's vacant gaze. The responsibility weighed heavily on me. I wasn't just an antique store owner anymore. I was a gatekeeper, forever bound to a world of unseen horrors and the bioluminescent guardians that kept them at bay. With a deep breath, I stepped back inside, the soft clicking of the moths settling around the porcelain doll a constant reminder of the extraordinary secret that now resided within the walls of my unassuming shop. Rain lashed against the windows of my attic apartment, a relentless drumbeat that mirrored the frantic pounding in my chest. The power had flickered and died moments ago, plunging the room into an inky darkness that felt suffocating. But the absence of light wasn't what truly terrified me. It was the faint, rhythmic scratching emanating from a dusty antique gramophone in the corner. I hadn't touched the gramophone in years. It belonged to my great-grandfather, a man shrouded in whispers about his eccentric travels and forbidden knowledge. Now, bathed in the eerie glow of a stray lightning bolt, it seemed to pulsate with a malevolent energy, the scratching growing louder, more frantic. Suddenly, the scratching stopped. Silence descended, heavy and oppressive. My breath hitched in my throat as a low groan echoed through the room, the sound emanating from the gramophone's horn. Then, with a deafening crackle, a bolt of emerald lightning erupted from the horn, illuminating the room in a sickly green light. A figure materialized within the green lightning, a tall, gaunt creature with skin like cracked leather and eyes that burned like embers. It wore a flowing robe woven from what appeared to be spider silk, and its long, skeletal fingers twitched with an unsettling hunger. The vessel, the creature rasped, its voice a cacophony of whispers. Deliver it, mortal, and be spared your inevitable doom. Fear choked my voice. What vessel? What did this nightmare creature want? There was nothing of value in this dusty attic other than old memories and forgotten belongings. Then, my gaze fell on a simple wooden box tucked away on a shelf. It held a collection of antique insect specimens, a childhood fascination I'd long abandoned. As if sensing my thoughts, the creature pointed a bony finger at the box. The vessel, it repeated, its voice laced with urgency. Before I could react, a frantic buzzing filled the room. A swarm of multicolored insects erupted from the box, swirling around my head like a miniature, buzzing tornado. They weren't lifeless specimens anymore. Their iridescent wings shimmered, and their tiny bodies crackled with a faint electrical energy. The creature recoiled, its burning eyes widening in surprise. It hissed, a sound like hot coals spitting, and raised a hand to swat away the insects. But they were too fast, too numerous. They swarmed around the creature, their buzzing growing louder, more intense. Emboldened by this unexpected defense, I lunged for the ancient book on entomology that lay open on the floor. With trembling hands, I flipped through it, searching desperately for an explanation. According to the book, certain rare insects, under extreme circumstances, could become conduits for powerful electrical energy. A plan, risky and desperate, began to form in my mind. Grabbing a magnifying glass from the bookshelf, I focused the sunlight streaming through a hole in the roof onto the swarm of insects. It was a long shot, but I hoped to intensify the electrical energy they were channeling. As the sunlight hit the insects, they glowed brighter, buzzing with a renewed fervor. The creature let out a piercing shriek, its form flickering and distorting under the onslaught. With a final agonizing cry, it dissolved into a wisp of green smoke, sucked back into the gramophone horn. Silence descended once again, broken only by the soft buzzing of the insects as they settled back into the box. Exhaustion washed over me, my legs giving way as I crumpled to the floor. The experience left me shaken and terrified. Yet, a strange sense of wonder mingled with the fear. My childhood curiosity over insects had, inadvertently, saved me from a terrifying entity. The next morning, I started researching the origins of the gramophone and the box of insects. My research led me down a rabbit hole of forgotten lore, filled with stories of interdimensional breaches and creatures from beyond the veil. Apparently, the insects, hailing from a long-lost civilization, were the guardians of this realm, and the gramophone, an ancient artifact, was the key to the breach. The responsibility weighed heavily on me. I became the unwilling custodian of a terrifying doorway with the buzzing insects as my unlikely protectors. The world outside continued its daily routine, oblivious to the potential disaster lurking in a dusty attic apartment. But I knew. And now, I was forever bound to a world of unseen horrors and the humming sentinels that kept them at bay. The rain had stopped, replaced by a sliver of pale sunlight peeking through the attic window. The box of insects sat on the shelf, a constant reminder of the monstrous possibilities that existed just beyond our realm. As long as they remained quiet, I knew there was a semblance of peace. But a tiny part of me couldn't help but wonder, how long would their buzzing silence hold?